What is going on, my friends? I hope you are doing well today. The team at TRE wants to say thank you so much for all the support. Thank you for joining today. This is the Real Estate Podcast, and we want you guys to do us a solid. If you don't mind, can you help us get the message out? We believe that real estate can be for anybody, and we believe there's opportunities for people to grow with us. So if you can, please share, subscribe, like, comment. Thank you for being here on our journey, and we are going to continue to add as much value as we possibly can and try to shake up the industry. Let's dive in.
Let me flip that. I think I can add value to a lot of folks. We just talked about a problem that I might be able to offer a solve to. Mm-hmm. And naturally that benefits me because I get more workload in my company. Mm-hmm. But a lot of folks run into problems that they cause them to not be able to close a real estate deal. And I tell people, be creative, be focused, seek, ask people, pay money to experts, try to get your answers. And if you can't, like the moment when you're about to write that deal off, literally cancel it and walk away, that's when you want to call me.
All right, Logan Fullmer, welcome to the Real Estate Podcast. Guys, thanks for tuning in. We appreciate you guys. If you can, make sure to subscribe, like, share it with your friends. And we're going to dive in. Logan and I actually just met, so it's kind of cool. You get to be part of this journey. And he's a real estate entrepreneur living in San Antonio.
That's right, man.
And like I said, just met. So I'm kind of excited. People are going to be on the journey with me. What we like to do is dive into people's background as much as you want, right? This is a podcast, so we'd be here for an hour, no rush. But like share a little bit about who you are, where you grew up, and we'll dive into like some interesting real estate stuff on the way. Yeah. But just share some of your journey. Like, where'd you get started, man?
Cool. So dad was a CPA, mom was a realtor, grew up in Temple, Texas. So that's, a couple hours north of here. I had a little bit of finance background. My dad would talk about it a lot. Mom was into the deals. So my mom was a sales manager before that. So there are a lot of the skills that happen today in entrepreneurship and specifically real estate were there in the household. So that was neat. I went to college down Southwest. I got a 4-year degree in 7 years. I was proud that I got the degree.
Hey, there you
go. From there I had a couple different jobs, worked for a developer, worked for a builder.
What kind of development was it?
It was real estate.
Okay, like single family?
They were doing like infill condo townhome stuff. Okay. Down there in Houston.
Okay.
So that really affected me later on in life, but I got to see some really interesting stuff, folks buying dirt, old beat up houses, and then we'd go sell the product when it was done. So I got to see that stuff.
What was your role there? Were you like cold calling or drumming up new opportunities?
Yeah, so I did a little bit of that. Then I worked as a developer consultant, so I would communicate with the developers that we would sell their products. So the guy that I worked for would do the construction, he'd do the development, but he had a brokerage, so he would sell for them.
Oh, cool.
So I did some of the developer relations for a little while and then some sales. So I was getting ready to get my real estate license there. And then I left to come back to Temple and flip some houses. So I had just trying to bouncing around, trying to find the right job, flipped a couple of houses there.
But always real estate. Like you always knew you wanted to be in real estate, right? And you're kind of just like seeing the different aspects of it.
I don't know that I was consciously thinking that, but I saw all the people that weren't doctors or lawyers that had a lot of money were in real estate. And I thought, I like that idea.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Okay.
So went that route, flipped a couple of houses, and realized I didn't have enough. I was undercapitalized. I needed more. So
you're doing like hard money loans, and what was that looking like as far as like finding them? And
my mom was an agent, so she kind of had some relationships, and that was at a low point in the market, 2010, 11. Mm-hmm. So you could find a house on MLS, fix it up a little bit, and sell it, make a little profit. Mm-hmm. So those were all done. They were $75,000 to $150,000 houses, not super expensive. Mm-hmm. But after I did a couple of those, I did realize, like, if I'm going to really make a living at this, you can't do one house at a time. Yeah. You got to have more. So I went to the oil field, and that was a big, big, big change. That's my income shot up. I was able to save really quickly.
South Texas?
Yeah, from Midland to Laredo, basically.
Okay, nice. Never was part of that, but I had a bunch of friends that did it, and it was interesting. Like, from being on the outside, like, man, all these guys making a ton of money, and they're just working like 24/7 essentially, and it's all about the money. And
that was it.
Everyone seems not everyone, but a lot of them are blowing the money, right? Like in some, or they just have so much that all the like I've got some friends that have a place called the HTO, and it's like they sell tea, iced tea, but they're out of Midland and Lubbock, and they got all this money, and they're talking about like how prices there are just for the tea are higher than they would be in Corpus.
Oh, right. So like when you go to the gas station, fuel and food are more expensive there, lodging, housing, all that. You're right. Yeah. So there's a weird dynamic because I see these guys, you know, when I started, I was making 80 grand. By the time I left, I was making 170 something range.
Yeah.
So that was huge money from a guy that never made more than 40 grand a year in his life.
Yeah.
And I realized now I'd always blown everything before then. And at this point, this was my one opportunity to really like have more than a couple bucks at a time. Mm-hmm. So I just saved everything.
What percentage of people, if you had to guess, are doing that?
Dude, nobody was doing it. I literally knew one other guy. Everybody else was like, they'd come back with a new bass boat. They're pulling a bass boat behind their truck to park it at their RV to live in the oil field. Dude, this was nuts.
Yeah, it's nuts. That's what I'm saying. From the outside, you're like, what is going on here?
Yeah. So I would go to San Antonio. Every 2-3 weeks, I'd have a weekend off. I'd go to San Antonio because it was the closest big city to me. And I started to see on the east side of San Antonio, there was a lot of vacant land. Houses were super cheap. And I thought, all right. I remember seeing this in East Austin and then just outside downtown in Houston when I worked for that developer. I thought if this ever changes, these little bitty $5,000 and $10,000 lots are going to be worth a lot more.
Right.
So I'd worked and saved for several years. I'd gotten about 250, 300 saved. I started buying those lots and houses, 5, 10, 15 grand a piece.
Nice.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's great to just – we usually use financing. I bought 3 lots for $5K in East, like over in Bastrop.
Yeah.
But we always use financing because we're trying to leverage to buy more, and which there's great strategies for both. But I'm like, man, doing cash would be so nice. Like, not to deal with the lender, don't pay all the closing costs. Like, just buy it. Super simple.
Right.
Closing docs are probably nothing.
Right. So, you know, now I'm dealing with bigger stuff. I got a lot of commercial deals going on some ranch land, and I'll start to use some financing components on some of those because, just like you said, your money goes further. But on those lots, my closing cost would be $1,500. Right. I'd buy the lot for $5 grand. I'd literally write a check to the title company for $7,000. That's it.
Yeah. So you still own those?
No. So that's kind of how this whole thing really got some ground. I'd gotten a couple dozen lots there, and this was in 2012, 13, 14 range. And so at this point, it's into 2014, I'm working in the office for the oil company. So it's in San Antonio. I'm no longer traveling, living in a little apartment. I get a call from this realtor, and he tells me, I got a client wants to give you 200 grand for this certain lot. Mm-hmm. And I look back in my books, I'm in this thing for like 10 grand. And I think 2 things. 1, I'm about to repay myself for this whole portfolio. That's meaningful. 2, that means the market has moved on this vacant land more than I ever realized.
Yeah.
And because there were no comps on the market, I was the pre-early mover. It was kind of luck and moved a little fast. But now you start to have the early movers, the guys that were going to develop. So there's no comparables, but they knew kind of what they were getting into. So that established a value very easily for me.
Yeah, that's great, man. So you sold it to them?
So I did. So the strange thing is I got laid off because we started having a lot of pricing pressure on the barrel of the oil in 2015 range. So I get laid off. And literally, I call that guy back. I was like, all right, send me that offer. He does, sell it. So now I've recapitalized myself, got a couple $100,000.
$200K.
200.
And you paid 5.
No, 10.
10. That's amazing.
It was. So it gave me some transparency into what the rest of the portfolio was worth. And now I got a couple $100,000. So I can pay the bills for a little while and try to figure out what I'm going to do. But at this point, I thought, all right, let me go try to flip some more houses. While I have a little more than I had before, it's not a lot more cash, but I did realize if I sell a couple more of those lots, they were selling at those same rates. Mm-hmm. So I realized, things had changed.
Yeah, that's cool. And you ended up selling all of them?
Yeah, I don't know any of those now.
Same person?
I sold one of them in 1031 exchange into a house, which is my home today. Mm-hmm. Well, that was a little bundle of them. And then, I started selling them off one by one. So then I started flipping houses a little bit more. And I thought I got to get a better deal on those. So I'd go to the tax sale or the mortgage sale and get those. I don't know about you, man, but construction will wear me out. It's tough.
Yeah.
And I remember one day I ran into this guy. He owned some land by me, and he knew how to do the tax sales a lot better than I did in the mortgage sales. So we decided to go and do some deals together. And after we buy these, we got 3 houses for $100,000, 30, 40 grand a pop. One of them was right by downtown, and he says, golly, I wonder if we put this on the market right now, what do we think we'll get for it? And we paid $40 for that one. And we just put a sign in the yard for $65,000, FISBO. Somebody drove by, contracted it in a couple of days. So we made $25,000, maybe $23,000 after closing costs. So it's a 50% return in 2 or 3 weeks. And something changed at that point. That was a deep value investment deal. It's different than buying and adding value. We bought it for less than it was worth and just sold it and made our money. And the business completely changed at that point. If I don't have to do construction anymore, I'm not going to do it.
Yeah. When you're saying like the flipping, right? Were you actually doing the work yourself or just overseeing it?
No, I mean, I was hiring contractors and stuff like that. You know, you're going out and looking at the tile guy. Oh, I got to go buy tile from Home Depot and bring it to him. You know, that whole.
Yeah, we bought 3 duplexes like a week ago. And my partner, Alex, has been like nonstop for a week on doing exactly what you're saying. And he's already like, I'm done with this.
Right.
And he's been doing it for a week.
Yeah.
So, and I've never actually gotten into that because, you know, he's holding it down there.
Yeah.
But exactly what you're saying, you know, go to Lowe's, go here, go there. Right. It's like it ends up being 2 hours for this one little thing.
It is.
And it's unfortunate because it's hard to find great people. But you should be able to have someone do that, but they're not gonna jump on it as fast. And it's like those duplexes one of them's up for lease, the other 2 are gonna be up in the next week. But it's like if we didn't do that, it'd probably be like
months.
A month or 2. Yeah, exactly. And that's like, you know, 10, 15, 20 grand gone.
Yeah.
So I get it.
Yeah.
So you saw the value of the investing side.
Yeah.
I'm still, that 10 to 200 is crazy. What kind? That's 2,000%.
Something like that. So I look at that now and say, how can I recreate that?
Yeah.
But I realized there were a couple things happening. One, I saw a good opportunity and had the available cash to do it. 2, we were at a low point in the market, and I knew that we were in a low part of the market, and I expected things to get stronger in the near term. I just didn't know when, or I didn't have a timeline. It moved faster than I expected.
Yeah.
So that was positive. But in order to recreate that right now, you probably can't.
Yeah, that's crazy. I've got these 3 lots in Bastrop, $5K each. I bought them like 6 years ago, and
yeah,
I couldn't even drive you out there. I'm like, yeah, I got them somewhere out there.
Yeah.
And it was $5K, maybe similar to what you're like. It's like, hey, how can I lose money on this?
So that's the ideology right there. You just hit the nail on the head. I'm probably not going to lose any money. If I do, maybe I'll sell it for 4, and I paid 5, won't lose much.
Yeah.
But my upside could be very big, but my downside is very minimal.
Yeah.
So let me see where I can go with this.
And my taxes on those are like $400.
Right.
Like for all 3 of them.
So you should run a CMA on them because you might be surprised today.
Maybe, yeah. I'm waiting on that $200,000 offer. No, that's really cool. Okay.
Yeah.
So kind of fill me in now. So like you saw the value of investing, you wanted to get out of flipping and more into, what is it?
You know, my wife's brother is a hedge fund guy on Wall Street, and they call themselves deep value investors. They're looking for something for less than it's worth. And if they
like that term because we do that too. I just never put a term on it.
Yeah, me either. You know, he's one of the guys, went to Harvard, smart guys, got all these special words. I'm the idiot over here who understands the concept, but, you know, done all that.
Hey, I don't know if that guy ever made a 2,000% return. So
well, that's fair. That's fair.
Screw that guy. Just kidding.
Yeah, so at that point, I just started looking for stuff for less than it was worth. And during that time, when I was buying all those lots, I remember there were a bunch of them that I couldn't get closed because they were lots of owners, all these judgments and liens and all this stuff. And it's only $5,000 lots. It wasn't worth a lot of trouble. But I remember talking to my business partner at the time. He and I just started doing deals together, like I was telling you. And he said, hey, remember all those other deals that you couldn't get closed? Well, what do you think you could maybe try to fix some of those? And there was one property I bought one time. There were 9 owners. And I'd gotten real fast and loose with this. I was going to title company, giving them money, getting a deed. And it was just 1 or 2 people showing up, husband and wife or one person. I thought, what's so hard about this? So when folks started telling me they'd sell their property to me, I'd say, okay, come to my office. And I have a lawyer make a deed for $150 and I'd buy it. So I wasn't getting title insurance, and that was fine for most of them. Mm-hmm. But on one of them, there were actually 9 owners, and I bought 1 deed. So there were 8 more owners. I owned like a 9th.
That's funny.
And over the next year, while I was doing all my other business, I went to lawyers and asked, what do I do? Found all these ways to deal with it. And in that case, it was just contacting the other owners and buying their shares.
So you literally just owned a ninth. Like
One
that's how
ninth.
it works.
Yeah, me and these 8 other siblings that all hated each other owned the other part.
That's crazy. What's
Yeah.
up, partners?
Yeah, that we had
Can I come to the
conversations
reunion?
like that. One of them drove by when I was mowing it one day. And he's like, "What are you doing on my lot?" I'm like, "This is my lot." And he goes, "It's my lot." And I was like, "I guess it's our lot."
I'm over my ninth over here.
Yeah. So through that process, I figured there were also some judgments and liens attached to one of those owners' names. So I had to work through getting those resolved as well. And I learned a lot during that period, but didn't know it. So we went back and revisited all those other properties that I'd attempted to buy during that early phase, and I was unable to because of the title problems, and started working through some of those and went through another wave of another couple dozen lots that I was able to cure the title problems, collect all the ownership interest, and close them. And the market had moved. They weren't worth 5 or 10 anymore. They were worth 100 or 200 grand. But the purchase price didn't move much because there were so many problems attached to them. No one could buy them except this idiot over here that's trying. So I still got another round of those for 10, 20 grand a piece.
Nice.
So that was the second round. Mm-hmm. But during that time, I realized, so at this point now we're in 2020, 2019, 2020. Market's hot, on fire. Things are super expensive. And I found, okay, remember I took that house after the tax sale to the market. I bought something for less than it was worth. And I thought, all right, I like this. This is a paperwork deal, not construction. After I went back and did that second round of lots, I realized I can buy these for less than they're worth. It's a paperwork deal. So I started to tell people I'm looking for the problem properties. Mm-hmm. And that's how the current rendition of my real estate business kind of took shape.
And what does that look like at this point? Like, what's the overlay? Like, what's the business look like?
So I got 7 people in the office.
Okay.
I got 4 attorneys, private investigator, genealogist, and did 223 transactions last year. Mm-hmm. So in volume, we're looking for real estate. We prefer the stuff with problems, but sometimes we get lucky and they don't have problems. We can just get a good deal. Mm-hmm. But we'll buy them, solve the problems. Sometimes we'll make it a rental. Sometimes we'll make it a seller finance deal or owner finance, whatever. And then sometimes I'll just dump it on the market for cash.
Mm-hmm. So whatever makes the most sense.
Right. Yeah.
And what is the process? Like, I've just said a lot of attorneys.
Right.
You got a bunch of cold callers, or is it inbound? Like, how did the leads get to you?
You know, on those, about half of those now are referrals. I mean, I got local county judges. I got realtors. I got 2 calls on the way up here from folks in the neighborhood that I've dealt with in the past, and they're telling me about neighbors, friends, referrals. So about half of those are from referrals. There are 3 guys in the office that are doing outbound sourcing. They're looking up someone's behind on their taxes. Maybe the vesting deed is 90 years old, and, you know, people hardly live that long. So there's probably a problem there. Mm-hmm. So they're looking for them, looking up lawsuit filings, lis pendences.
And the attorneys are a huge part because you just solve it quickly.
Well, you don't solve it. You solve it for sure, but it's not always quick. Some of the solves we really are able to get.
I'm saying, like, quickly is compared to, like, what maybe I would solve it at. Like, you're just like, hey, what do we do?
So at this point, there's about half a dozen primary problems that I'll see.
Okay.
And it's generally one of those, half a dozen maybe. So at this point, all right, we're taking this route. All right, we're taking this route. All right, we're taking this route.
What are the problems? Like, can you kind of walk us through some of that?
Yeah, the most common ones, you see a lot of unreleased judgments or liens. You got an old deed of trust. You have to work through those. You'll find breaks in the title chain. Maybe someone didn't record a deed or someone inherited it, and we don't have a public document to connect that title chain. You'll have that. You'll have fractured ownership, orphaned or unresolved estates, things like that. Those are super common. We'll see weird little defects like a right of first refusal from a transaction 50 years ago, but it was never released. So that right of first refusal will remain on the land until the heirs of the person who owned that right release it. So we'll see defects like that. I was on the phone this morning on the way up here. We have a property under contract in Baytown, and the title report came back, and we've got a demo lien on it. I'm sorry, not a demo lien, a demo order. So the house is in bad shape, and the city went through their hearings to demolish it. So now we got to file a restraining order, go back and petition the city to remove that lien or at least vacate it. So that we can still, that's a wholesale deal. So we can still do the wholesale deal and then the buyer's going to promise to repair the property so that we can get the lien vacated.
Interesting. So I've got a couple questions. Personal deals.
Yeah.
We have a deal in Hutto. Me and my partner put under contract, and the seller just decided not to close. And so we filed the MOC, memorandum of contract, and I don't know how that works. Like, I know that we filed it, and dude, we put under contract at like $239, and he got the appraisal back at like $700.
Oh my gosh!
And it wasn't even that long ago. Like, we knew deep value. We knew it was a good buy at the beginning, but then the market also went up. So we have that filed. How strong is that? Like, how legit is that? Do you know how that would play out for us? He says, I'm not selling. Like, screw you guys. We're like,
Right.
All right, well, we'll just file this memorandum of contract.
So the memos, there's a lot that could be a whole discussion in itself. Basically, what you did is you memorialized a transaction and clouded their title so that if they want to sell it to someone in the future, they got to come back and play ball with you. Some title companies will close around that memo and just ignore it because there's not a statute and there's no common law that makes provision for that being a valid instrument. So, like,
that's what it seems like. It's like not that legit. Like,
you know what it is? It's a rough and tough way to stop people is what it is. I mean, there's
but it's not even that legit, right?
It works is what it does. So what happens is when you file that thing, you now have a claim to that asset. And what happens is when the title company wants to insure it, when that seller wants to sell it to somebody else, what they're going to say is, you know what, this guy might come back and sue the title company or this seller for some kind of cause of action if we insure the sale. So title says, even though this is not a good instrument that the provision is made for in the legal codes, we're not going to insure that. So it effectively stops the sale because no title companies will touch it.
So they got to deal with us to remove it, and that could mean anything.
Right. Now,
like
a couple
they pay
things.
us $5,000 or they pay
So
us.
I've been on both sides of memo lawsuits. So I've been on the side that's trying to enforce one, and I've been on the side that's going to wipe one. So let me just pick a side.
Okay.
Let's say I call this guy and say, I want to buy your house. I'm going to give you $400 because I know it's worth $700, and he's willing to sell it to me for $400 because it's way more than your $250. He says, well, I got this problem over here. He shows me this memo. I said, okay, let me see your contract. So I'm going to read through your whole contract, make sure you didn't make any mistakes. The next question I'm going to say is, did you perform? And you're going to say, well, he told me he wasn't. He breached contract. And I'm going to say, well, wait a second. But did Matt go to the title company with his funds
We did.
and close?
Yeah.
And you did all that?
Yeah, we did.
Okay. So you performed.
Yeah, we were there. Like, because the title company that we're working with is also our attorney. And we're like, hey, what do we do? He's like, well, show up to closing.
Okay. You did the right thing. 90% of the people that file memos don't do that.
Yeah. We were trying, because, I mean, I've done some research on it, and we tried to do the right thing. But the more I looked into it, I'm like, this doesn't seem like it's that legit. And it kind of affirms it. It is, but it's not. So,
little gray area there.
Yeah, exactly.
So in this case, now you say I performed. So what I would do if I were in your shoes is I would say, I'm going to file a specific performance lawsuit and get you to perform. If it's not been more than 4 years since that day, I'm going to file a specific performance suit.
So
and the judge would probably order him to do that. You performed. You did what you're supposed to. You tendered the money, and you performed the obligation under the contract. If you did that, unless there are any weird circumstances, sounds like you'd have a really good claim for performance. I would encourage you to do that right now.
Yeah.
Because there's so much equity. You spend, what, 30, 40 grand litigating, worst case scenario. Best case scenario, you get yourself a judgment for 5 or 10 grand, and the judge orders him to perform and go sign that closing. Now you can perfect this good deal that you have.
So it is legit. I mean, you just have to do the next step.
What
I'm
you
just
did
thinking
that
like
makes a big difference is you went and
showed
closed. That memo means something, but your closing means more than that memo.
I'm just thinking on the seller side, like, why do people think they can just not sell? And then there's this gray area and it doesn't,
Because they don't understand contract law, and 90% of the time, folks don't do anything about it. For us, I don't file memos. I'll either let them walk or file specific performance. And I've done several performance lawsuits.
Why not do both? Just to be...
I mean, I'm going to file a lawsuit. So, I mean, there's no point in me filing the memo. If I want that house and it's a really good deal, I'm going to file a performance lawsuit. And I'm going to get the judge to order that sale to happen.
Yeah.
So I'm going to get it. For me, no point in filing the memo. When I file the lawsuit, we're going to file Liz Pendants anyway in the land records. And that's a good instrument. That instrument is recognized by judges and title companies, and they say, whoa, there's a pending lawsuit that affects this real estate. We are not closing that. No one will close around that.
Interesting.
Yeah. So you have a really good opportunity there that's kind of just sitting out there. You might say, maybe I should go and make good on that.
Yeah.
Or maybe call a guy like me and says, will you partner with me on this deal? If you'll go perfect that claim, I'll split the profit with you.
Yeah.
We do deals like that a lot.
Yeah, very cool. Interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah. Then we had another seller. The same thing happened. 2 days ago, they said they're not selling, but then they changed their mind and they are going to sell. But it's like, my son, we bought this other one for $265 and I think it's worth $450 easy. Yeah. And we got a steal at the beginning. And she's like, my son wants it. And I'm like, I'm sorry. Like, this business, like we prepared for this. We met you. We got the contract signed. We put up the money. I'm not trying to be rude, but like we had a deal.
Right.
And if it was flipped, we're at the point where we need to close. So no one's going to let us just out of these deals, right? Like a deal means something.
So Texas is really strong about property owners' rights, but they're also big about contract performance. This person agreed with you. They signed. They probably shook your hand. They made a covenant to you, no different than the one your wife made. I'm going to do this. I promise. In fact, I'm going to sign. Mm-hmm. So that means something. And a lot of folks don't want to make good on their word when they think there's more money at stake. But you know, if someone's going to do that, you know, you sometimes have to hold feet to the fire.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, well, hopefully that's valuable for people because there's not a lot of answers out there on this stuff. Like you can try to look up memorandum of contract, and unless you're talking to someone who's doing it and living it, it's not really that easy to understand it on the Google search.
You're right. So you'll see a lot of stuff out there in the case law. You'll see a lot of opinions and judgments and stuff, but you got to go look for that. And unless this is what you do all day, you're busy inking the next deal. You got a podcast going on. You're trying to get those duplexes done. When are you going to sit down and spend 7 hours becoming an expert on this one specific cause? Or it might take you 2 weeks. Yeah. So that's kind of where we spent the time because it was interesting. We knew no one else was doing it. And if we can find a way to solve those problems, we can get ourselves in those really good deals again. Yeah. So that's where our time is spent.
That's a good niche. Yeah, it's a really good niche. Is there a big component like website or inbound that you're promoting this, or is it, like you said, mostly word of mouth? You've got the knowledge, but because it seems like if you were to add like a bunch online, like you could be getting these all over the country.
You're right. Probably so.
If that's like, which I believe it is, it's a rare niche. There's not. I've done this for 13 years. I haven't really talked to someone who would say like kind of specializes in this aspect of it, other than attorneys. But they're not even really buying the deals.
Well, that and another issue you run into is the attorneys have been formally trained a certain way. So they're thinking risk, they're thinking laws. They forget the business case. And no disrespect to any of them, but the guys that even call themselves, we're businessmen as much as we are attorneys, it's very hard for them to shake their training. So they really get wrapped up in these rules and they forget about the business case. So even those guys struggle to find the business case, you know, in a argument or cause of action, I guess.
What's the big, or what's the vision or the goal? I mean, is there any, like, hey, this is what we're trying to do, or is it just kind of keep doing what you're doing, just keep building, or any thoughts on that?
You know, early on it was to try to make a living. You know, early on I wanted to support myself, and I thought that I was capable of something big, but I wasn't totally sure. And most entrepreneurs, you probably have experienced this, as you start to get some success, you start to trust yourself and believe it, and from there, you get past the point of trying to, you know, pay your bills. You're beyond that. Now you're past the point of trying to pay your bills for several years or longer. Mm-hmm. So at this point, there's become some more fun. You know, I built out a really good team. Things are working really well. They don't need my assistance every moment of every day, which is great because the guys are killing it out there. The last couple of years, we started looking at some other businesses. We did a food manufacturing plant. It's a white label, salsa and barbecue plant. We made that investment, have a manager in there turning it around. Got involved in a whiskey brand there. We started a wholesaling business last year in September. So that's been a fun exercise. Kyle is running that one. It's really doing well. They're averaging between 10 and 20 properties a month. About 1 to 3 a month you have to pay for, because a problem with a contract overlay. You know, the closing day for the seller is sooner than the closing day for the buyer.
Yeah, buy it and then just resell it.
So that's kind of a unique thing that our wholesaling business does more of, is we take down a lot more deals than most folks do. Those are small multifamily, so the spreads are really big relative to single family house.
Mm-hmm.
So we built that business out. It's really running well. There are 8 people in that office kind of working through that stuff monthly.
Mm-hmm.
So that's been a fun growth. I don't know. Right now, my wife just started a luxury purse buying and reselling business.
All right.
So it's a concept.
Entrepreneur is a good title, right? Entrepreneur.
Right. Yeah, you start to learn business, and you can do it with a house. You can do it with a purse. You can do it with a contract.
Mm-hmm. So
it's finding human capital, finding the business case, and kind of putting it all together has been really fun.
Yeah. And what would you say, like...
Wait, let me go back to answer your question. What's the goal?
Yeah.
Man, I don't know. We're doing this. We love it. We have 4 kids. My wife is an incredible person. My business partners are just amazing people to work with.
Mm-hmm.
So we're kind of competing against ourselves, keeping the score against
having
ourselves,
fun.
enjoying the hell out of this.
Yeah. I say that too. Like, we want to build and want to grow, but it's not like, hey, like, let's sell the company, or it's just like, hey, let's just have fun. Like, life's short. Like, regardless, like, let's try to enjoy what we're doing as much as we can. And part of that's trying to be better and getting, challenged and all that. But it's not about a finish line or anything.
You get to this point where a certain amount of money changes your life from not really great to different. But incrementally above that, your life doesn't change. Like, from where you and I probably live today, what's $50 million do if you add that to your net worth, or $100 million? I mean, you get a jet, maybe you get a boat, but your life day to day doesn't really change when you're beyond a certain point. So at this point, that's where the fun component comes in.
Right. I like that. Yeah, man. So would you say that, because you have a lot going on, right? Do you try to specialize in, like, hey, this is what I like and this is what I'm good at, whether it be like, talking to people or analyzing stuff? Do you try to find like one thing, or do you like to kind of bounce around and analyze this business and solve this problem and figure out this one, or do you try to say, like, what's my zone that I want to get into?
And at one point, I spent a lot of time trying to understand what you were supposed to do and read all these books and balance your life and all this stuff. And I got frustrated because I would try to follow these recommendations and these programs and plans, and I would do worse when I would try to follow somebody else's plan. And I stopped. This is about 2 years ago, and I looked back over the probably 5 years before then and realized there's very methodical growth. It's very stable. It's very consistent. These things have been built really, really well. But when I wake up, it's like freaking Groundhog Day for me. Like, I got to go run and exercise, but after that, I don't even know what's happening. I look at my phone to see what's going on, look at this long to-do list in my office, call my partners. I don't have a clue what's happening.
Mm-hmm.
So I would like to say it's more methodical and planned, but it's like whatever I want to feel like it that day, I do it. And thank God the businesses are built where they're really running. So there's a major problem. I'll get in and say, oh man, they got an issue in this business. Let me go fix that. But some days I got nothing going on. So I'll say, hun, let's work on your business today.
Mm-hmm.
So
that's cool. So it's just like,
But that's where the fun part comes in. Now I get to wake up.
Yeah.
And I'm at the point in my life where I don't do anything I don't want to do. And that to me is way more important than any of this other stuff that I've told myself along the way.
Yeah. That's great, man. I love that.
Yeah.
What would you say some of your big secrets, not even secrets, but like big things that you focused on that have led to your success? Like, if you're going to point things out to people getting started, entrepreneurs, like, are there a couple core beliefs or ideas that you hold true that really stuck with you that you'd promote to someone else?
God, it sounds so cliche, but putting in the hours. There's so many models and combinations that seem to work for folks, but being interested in something and really getting into it and figuring out and working a lot at it, I mean, that really is it. That's made a huge difference. That, and I think financial responsibility. Early on I didn't have financial discipline, so I was just, I never treated money like a tool. And when I went to the oil field, I realized I've blown every nickel I had, and I really have to change this. When I started to use money as a tool and respect it and treat it differently, then that made a big difference because I got much more stable, which is what allowed me to spend literally 3 weeks when I was working on figuring out these titles, we'd run into a problem, and I would literally work on one thing for 2 or 3 weeks, reading, researching, going to the courthouse, pulling files, reading them. And I wasn't generating money at that moment, but I was becoming a specialist in something that did translate to money later. So it really is putting in the time and respecting the money that you're making.
What would you say, and obviously the counter side to that is things to avoid, but other things to avoid that you're like, never do this, right? Like, obviously the money thing is like, don't just, willy-nilly operate on money, but anything that would.
Oh, that's an easy one. Bright and shiny object syndrome. You hear people talk about it some days, and it's never been more prevalent than right now to me because I got several business partners, and each guy's company kind of operates slightly different. And I watch the guys that can get laser focused, and I notice their path is more straight. And some of the guys, some of my close friends too, are just all over the place. I saw this on the internet today. This was on YouTube yesterday. My friend told me about this. I'm like, dude,
yeah, zone in.
Yeah. Now, so I'm at a spot in my business right now where I can go all over the place because there's a stabilization factor. But man, for the first 5 or 7 years, if something wasn't right in my lane, I would say, forget it. It's not in my wheelhouse. I can't be efficient at it. I'm going to just do this. Forget everything else.
That's great, man. I love it.
Yeah.
Well, what about ways that maybe we ourselves or our listeners could try to add value for you or help you out? Like, what are things you're looking for?
Let me flip that. I think I can add value to a lot of folks. We just talked about a problem that I might be able to offer a solve to. And naturally that benefits me because I get more workload in my company. But a lot of folks run into problems that they cause them to not be able to close a real estate deal. And I tell people, be creative, be focused, seek, ask people, pay money to experts, try to get your answers. And if you can't, like the moment when you're about to write that deal off, literally cancel it and walk away, that's when you want to call me. And I love talking about this stuff. I'll talk about it all day. When folks call me at my office, they think, I can't believe I got you on the phone. I'm like, why? This is the heart of our business. This is my favorite part. Let's talk about your problem. So I would encourage folks to call me, call our office, get one of us on the phone right before you're about to cancel a deal. And it's incredible how much value we can unlock.
Yeah.
Sometimes the difference is literally just one or two small, tiny little decisions.
Yeah.
And we can unlock $500,000 in value in property right now.
That's cool.
So I would love to be a service to folks. I can offer that. I just started doing some classes because folks have been just pestering me about the details. And I found that I was ineffective doing it in a small format. So I'm recording some of that stuff, and it's available for sale online. I mean, for less than an hour of a lawyer's cost. I got 7 hours worth of curative title instruction. I'm doing a series right now with an attorney that I work with a lot, and we're doing a contract class. It's custom contract versus TREC contract. He'll talk about the laws, and I'll talk about my experience on it. We got 10 different topics over the next 2 months we're going over now. So that's
great,
some stuff
man.
I'm able to get out there for folks.
That's cool. I love it. That's like you said, unlock $500,000. I mean, there's tons of value in this niche. That's just it's unique because most people don't get into it as much as you would think. Like realtors, brokers, investors, like they kind of just close the deals and trust title, and a lot of this stuff happens, but no one ever sees it or talks about it.
So I was telling Steve Train this. Most investors want it cheap, easy, and fast. And the deals we do are slow, hard, and expensive for the fees. Yeah. So we're the exact opposite. You get a deal, you throw it in the title. If it works out, great. If it doesn't, you're going to go to the next thing you can do quick.
I love it, man. Different skill set, and it's going to be exciting to watch your journey and see everything play out. Yeah. Is there anything else you'd like to touch on or talk about?
I don't know, man. I guess we hit it all. We got a little bit of family, a little bit of entrepreneurship, a little bit of the journey.
Ways to get a hold of you, and hopefully you guys find this valuable. I think there's definitely going to be needs that people have if they watch this. It's just a matter of time. Yeah. Because you always deal with this stuff. So you seem to be easy to get a hold of. Reach out. We'll put your notes or your info in the show notes. Sure. And man, thanks for driving to Austin, and good to quickly meet you. And I'm excited to see what we can maybe do together.
Yeah, no doubt. I'm glad we got to come here. Thanks.
Yeah, absolutely.
Appreciate it.
So thank you guys. Once again, it's the Real Estate Podcast. We appreciate you releasing these all the time. And we're just happy to help any way we can. Reach out to Logan, and make sure you like, comment, subscribe, and hope you guys have a great day. Peace.